Hey everybody, we just getting started. We have Katie and Mark here. Um, just give us 60 seconds to let people trickle in, and then we will get going. For those waiting, Mark is joining us from Nigeria, and Katie, where exactly are you located right now?
I'm in Washington, D.C.
Washington D.C. And we appreciate everyone showing up. We know a lot of things drawing our attention right now, given everything going on, especially in the U.S. So appreciate folks being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully, this can give you a nice little break before you kind of go back to the major news cycle going on.
Yeah.
All right, we'll get started for the folks here. Welcome to day 6 of our conference. We are joined by filmmaker Katie Schuler and Dr. Mark, who is a conservationist in Nigeria. And for today's session, Katie's going to show us one of her films. She's made several films featuring pangolins, and she's going to show us one of the films based in Nigeria that Mark is actually in. And then for the folks here, you are lucky because we're actually have a surprise. We have our second live pangolin experience of the conference. Mark will be showing us one of the younger pangolins that they're rehabbing there in Nigeria after Katie's short film. So you get kind of both. You get a wonderful short film with the director and her commentary, and then you get a live pangolin from Dr. Mark right after. So for those of you who are here, it's definitely going to be worth it. I'll probably keep it at that. I'll wrap things up where we're at in the conference. We have one more session tomorrow, which is geared for kids, but really it's going to be a joy for everybody to meet sort of the youngest pangolin ambassador out there, little Ryan Hill. But we'll talk about more in the end. With that, I will jump off. I'll turn it over to Katie and Mark, and it's all yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, James, and thank you everybody for joining us this evening. I am Katie Schuler. I am a conservation filmmaker, and I am speaking to you from Washington, D.C., and I'm very excited to share with you one of my latest films that features Dr. Mark Ofua, who we also have on the call from Lagos, Nigeria. And it is currently 1 a.m. in the morning for Mark. So special thank you to you for joining us at such an early hour. And please stick around after the film. Mark is rehabilitating actually 3 different pangolins right now. And so if we're lucky, since they are nocturnal, the white-bellied pangolin species is nocturnal, we will hopefully get a chance to get a peek at one of these very special pangolins that he's rehabilitating. But before I get more into Mark and his work, I want to share this film with you that was filmed at the beginning of last year. And it was part of a National Geographic storytelling grant. And so let me just share my screen here, and we're going to do some director's commentary over top of it. Okay. And here we go.
It may surprise you that the most illegally trafficked mammal in the world.
Music that you're hearing is by the amazing Isaac Jacobs.
It is a small,
He's an amazing composer. And then the voice that you're hearing is our amazing friend Jumi with the Nigerian Pangolin Working Group.
Have seen them in the wild.
who's also another amazing hero for pangolin conservation in Nigeria.
Pangolin scales are prized by many as
right now you're seeing an extreme close-up of the black-bellied pangolin species, which, if you saw yesterday's talk, was featured in Mark Shirley's research. This shot here, I think, is really stunning because it shows a dried, deceased pangolin right next to a live pangolin being sold. And these are the cages that they actually sold in. So here's Mark's home base with his awesome cat painting.
A veterinarian. We have a shelter, and to the best of my knowledge, it's the first animal shelter in Nigeria. In my course of rescuing these wild animals, I stumbled on the pangolin. When I look at the pangolin, it's a very beautiful creature. When you look into the eyes, you see old man's wisdom. Yes, he's very intelligent. That's the pangolin. Up till about a couple of years ago, I didn't even know we had pangolins in Nigeria.
So this is a really interesting fact that we discovered while we were in Nigeria. Lagos is one of the largest exportation hubs for pangolin scales in Africa, and yet most people in Lagos and Nigeria at large do not know about the pangolin. They're kind of like unicorns. And so Mark, for example, until fairly recently didn't even know that they had pangolins in Nigeria, which I thought was really interesting. And what you're seeing here was something that I found to be particularly important for this film and for pangolin conservation in general, is to recognize that the poachers and the hunters, that they, for the most part, are just trying to feed their families. They're living day to day. They're in survival mode. And it's more, these large syndicates that are running the trade and kind of fueling the demand. And so I thought it was very important that, this story is being told by African voices, and that, these traders, they're not your black and white villains. There's a much more nuanced story to tell here. And so we wanted to show, that these traders and hunters, they're, just trying to survive and, to try to glimpse into the lives that they lead. Here this is one of the sellers with his son. And also I think it's really important that a lot of people understand that this trade is very much surviving off of social media, and it's being fueled and run off of Facebook and WhatsApp. So the same apps that we use to talk to our family and friends are the same apps that people are using to sell animals illegally. And I know they're working harder to combat these types of things.
Cultural, the average Nigerian has this notion on wild animals, which is basically bushmeat.
So here we are at the market.
Despite the fact that it's against our practice to buy, when I see an animal that is
something that Mark helped us understand was that a lot of Nigerians don't understand the concept of animals going extinct. It's more of this idea that the animals were put on the earth for us to eat and to do with whatever we need, and that the concept of the animals being eaten to the point of extinction is not something that a lot of people even understand, which I thought was fascinating.
Nothing wrong with that.
Calm down, you're feisty. Okay, better.
And so this is one of the many examples of what Mark does in Nigeria. Is he goes to these markets and he has existing relationships with different sellers. And when there's an animal that's injured or maybe is hard to sell because it's a baby animal, they often will, hand the animal over to Mark for rehabilitation. And what Mark does is he rehabilitates the animal. He makes sure that it is fit for release, and then he releases that pangolin into a protected area.
You do an e-transfer. Once they receive some money, then you take it down to the seaport.
So this is an example of some of the shipping containers where most of the pangolin scales are found during these illegal raids. This is where, the pangolin scales are found in these bags, by the ton. They're often transported alongside ivory and other illegal contraband weapons. This was a really large seizure that they had just in their back kind of parking lot sitting there. And I couldn't believe that it was just sitting there. Basically, all we had to do was ask them to show it to us. And so they opened it up and we got these really lucky shots of the just bags and bags of scales. This is Mark's son, Nathan. And he is learning about conservation from his father.
Picking up my interest in wildlife, yes. You see, it's a very gentle animal. He met some pangolins, yes, and he's intrigued by them because they are quite unlike anything he's seen before, yes. Now that we have rescued them from these hunters, we can keep it. So we take these pangolins to the protected forest where no hunters go to. That's called rehabilitation.
So Nathan, I think he's 8 years old, maybe he's 9 now, but he's learning how Mark does his rehabilitation work.
Pangolins.
He was bringing them out of the basket. We had large-sized ones, and then we had these tiny.
There you see the protective behavior that pangolins have, where they roll up into a ball when they feel threatened. And this is Jumi and Mark kind of intervening on a seller when he's trying to sell a pretty large group of pangolins. So we were able to intervene and do a pretty large release of 6 different animals at a time. A lot of the pangolins, as you may have heard throughout this week, they're very hard to, we're just now learning about how to take care of them properly and what is required for rehabilitation. And so when the pangolins are in good enough health to be re-released, we try to do so as soon as possible. So Mark and his team, as long as the animals seem like they're in good health and they're hydrated, they try to release them the same day that they find them from the hospitals.
He's going to leave. He has a whole forest to himself, and maybe someday he's going to be the king pangolin of the forest. And who knows, I could be lucky enough to meet him on one of my hikes in the forest, yes.
Okay, so see if I can stop sharing my screen here. All right. So with that, I would like to introduce our special guest, Mark Ofua. He's a vet based in Nigeria. He runs the St. Mark's Animal Hospital and Shelter, which is the first of its kind in Nigeria. And it does rescue and rehabilitation of wild animals, including pangolins. It is incredibly important work. I don't know anyone else really doing this kind of work in Nigeria. And he is currently rehabilitating 3 pangolin species And I'm going to see how well Mark's connection is, if he can tell us a little bit about the animals he's working with and the plan for their rehabilitation and release. And keep in mind as you're watching this that you can help Mark out by donating on the savepangolins.org webpage. And I'll give you more information about that. But for now, I'll turn it over to Mark and let you share with us a little bit about your work.
Thank you very much, Katie. Thank you very much, Katie. My name is Dr. Mark Ofua, a veterinarian based in Lagos, Nigeria. I am into wildlife rescue and rehabilitation with special interest in pangolins because of their position as endangered. It's great to be here, and I'll be showing you some of my rescues. What I do basically is rescue these animals by whatever means is possible. I see some of the comments, and it's very interesting. We do our best not to buy, but sometimes it's impossible not to buy. And you can't turn your back on the animal because you don't want to buy, when you know you can save that particular animal. When we get these animals, they are usually very weak, dehydrated, injured, or sick. And we have to treat and restore them back to health before we make the release. There are some that we get so young, we can't release them. And we have to care for them till they are good enough to release. So I'm going to show you the oldest of the pangolins, Juba. So this is Juba. He's been with us for 7 months, and he's due for release now. He has started to feed by himself. He's been with us for about 7 months. He feeds by himself. So he's good to release. We'll be releasing him this week. I'm very sure tomorrow he'll be going back home.
Mark, what did you say that? What is the feeding process for that particular animal?
Okay. When he came to us, he was very young, about less than a week old. He's very feisty. Likes to play a lot. So we started him completely on milk. He was doing milk for like 4 or 5 months of age, and then at about 5 months of age, we started taking him to the playground. I have a playground for them, which is a protected small area, to learn to forage. The kind of milk we use is cat milk. We use cat milk because it's closest to them. And then at about 5 months, we started taking him to learn to forage. So for right now, he's rooting. In the morning, we'll take him to forage. He eats a bit of ants. And then when he comes back, I kind of make up for whatever is short with the feed milk. In the afternoon, he does milk. And then evening, he goes to forage again before coming back to do milk. So that is his routine for now. Now the next guy is a rescue. He's been with us for about 2 months. Still on milk. He's much smaller.
Oh my gosh.
He's just beginning to learn to forage. He'll be staying with us for another 2 or 3 months till he shows evidence of being able to eat by himself and forage by himself. So right now he's still on milk, even though he goes out to play and learn to forage, but he's scared of termites. The first time I took him to a termite hill, he got bitten by termites and he won't go near them again. He won't go near termites. The other pets he will try to feed on, but most of the time I have to kill for him to feed on. But termites, he won't go near them again. He had a very bad experience. And now,
oh my gosh,
for the baby of the house, we named him Ireti. Ireti is a Nigerian language. It means hope. And with the other two, I was learning. I had Lisa Hyman from Cameroon helping me. And with Ireti, by the time we got Ireti, I had some sort of experience, more experience now than the babies. So we named him Hope, because Ireti is going to be hope of pangolins in Nigeria.
oh my gosh.
Ireti is barely 3 weeks old. It's so cute. There's so much.
Wow.
Time. Ireti eats about 7 times a day. So we wake him up to feed. So this is our baby. Ireti, she is yes.
Wow.
He's already
Yes.
yes, she's already at a creating food. So that's Ireti.
So is it feeding time for Hope?
Yes, it's about feeding time for her. Now, because he's not able to thermoregulate properly, we keep him wrapped up so he doesn't become cold. So it's about feeding time for Ireti. And that's his food. I have to first check the temperature.
So for those that are having trouble hearing, Mark is currently feeding Hope, the smallest of the 3 pangolins. And Hope feeds 5 to 6 times a day. So him and Dr. Kalista are feeding this little guy around the clock to make sure he gets enough calories.
Dr. Kalista is my assistant, and she works with me. We take turns feeding around the clock. So the food is a bit hot, so I put it in water to cool, because it has to be room temperature, yes, so that we don't get Ireti burned.
Yeah, no, we don't want that. Amazing.
So you see that tongue action. Where is dinner?
Sorry, I'm just trying to keep up with some of the questions here.
Okay.
Can you tell me a little bit about your relationship with some of the market sellers?
Okay. I try as much as possible to be very, very cordial with them, because I realize they are not bad people. They are just trying to survive. And if I'm going to get my message across to them, I would have to be very, very civil and understanding. So they see me as a friend, and I am welcome in their midst. Now, if they find any animal young like this, they know to call me to come and get it. And I try as much as possible not to buy. I try as much as possible not to buy. But what I do is I give them like an exchange of service. Some of them have dogs and cats that I treat for free. I vaccinate their animals for free in exchange for these services they do, calling me to come and pick up animals. But at times it's virtually impossible not to exchange cash, and that is when I buy. So Ireti is ready to feed now.
Awesome. Can you lift up just a little bit in case, if it's possible, so we can see?
Okay. Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So that's Ireti suckling.
Oh my gosh.
And go for 30 minutes because they eat kind of slowly.
Wow. And what do you think happened to the mother?
Oh, killed.
So the mother was is it that the hunter kills the mother and then the baby's still attached, or is it they sell the mother alive and then the baby gets discarded?
With this chap here, what I think happened was the mother was captured pregnant and she gave birth in captivity, yes. Because when I was called, the placenta was still attached and was not properly dried yet. Yes. So we have to train them to take the bottle. They don't take the bottles naturally, but we train them to take the bottle.
That's great. That was one of the questions, actually. Mark, this is incredible. Thank you so much. Can you tell us, what's going on with COVID in the markets? Are the markets back up and running already?
Oh, the markets are back up and running, yes. And even during the lockdown, the market was still running on the ground. Because I got several calls during the lockdown to make rescues. As I'm talking with you now, I have a civet family of four orphan civets that were rescued during the lockdown. Yes. So the market is still running. Now, for the COVID situation, the educated class, the elitists, they are aware of the COVID and they make the connection, they are aware of the connection between pangolins and COVID. But for the uneducated class, these traders and hunters, they couldn't care less. The impact of the link between pangolin and COVID is almost non-existent with them. They believe they've been handling these animals forever and they haven't got disease from them. So they think COVID is something foreign and it has nothing to do with them or their pangolins. Yeah.
Wow. So it's not affecting the hunters or the sellers, but the buyers, you think, are buying less?
Well, I would say maybe, because if there's something I found out during the lockdown, the call for rescue became higher. I got more calls during the lockdown than before. Yes.
What?
I got more calls.
Huh.
So it means the hunters were getting these animals as usual. And then maybe because of the lack of movement, the buyers were not able to buy as before. But immediately the lockdown was lifted, the calls reduced. So the trade is back on. I don't think the trade is affected. Can you see it is still feeding? They feed slowly.
Yeah, we can.
Yes, they feed slowly.
Yeah, I can see that.
40 minutes at times. At times he would slip off, and then I'll have to shake him or move the bottle, and then he resumes feeding.
Wow, that is exactly like my 5-month-old son right now. He does the same exact thing.
Like,
and for those of you who don't know, my son's middle name is named after you, Mark. Ofua.
It's like, oh no. Thank you so much.
Oh man. Okay, questions. So many great questions on here, you guys. So for those that might not be able to hear, I think Jennifer is asking what thing. It was as you're feeding Hope, the pangolin, Hope sometimes it takes a long time to feed, like 30 minutes. And Hope, the little baby pangolin will fall asleep in the middle of eating, and Mark has to, gently wake it back up so it'll continue feeding, which is exactly what my son does. Sorry, go ahead, Mark. What did you say?
Somebody asked if there is a threat of mass destruction of pangolins due to the COVID. No. Sadly, the government has not paid much attention to the plight of pangolins in the COVID era. I think they are overwhelmed with having to take care of the humans. Very little attention is paid to the pangolins or to other animals, wildlife.
Have the officials in Nigeria changed their tune since the film came out or since COVID has happened? What is your communication like with the Nigerian customs officials?
First of all, Kathy, let me say thank you for coming to make the film. It was a game changer in my work. Before the film, a lot of people, even my veterinary colleagues, they thought I was crazy doing what I was doing. Yes, they thought I was crazy. Somebody who would take his money to go and rescue animals and release the animals. You have to be crazy to do that because there's not enough money in the first place. Now, with the government, I had several run-ins that were not favorable to me. You see, I had issues with government, with certification. What are you doing? Why are you doing what you're doing, and all that. But after your film, you came to do that film, and it was released. It put a whole new perspective to my work. People saw differently what I was doing. People came to respect the work I was doing, and the tone and their acceptance level changed. Even the government officials, some of them saw the movie, and they came to see the importance of the work that I am doing. So yes, I get a bit of acceptance, and at least the antagonism has reduced because people now understand that what I'm doing is important. And interestingly enough, we're getting some students who are interested in volunteering, which is wonderful. Because before the films, there was nothing like volunteering.
That's awesome. So I see Jennifer's question here. Yeah, I don't think that the demand necessarily has been reduced, but your capacity to communicate with some of the Nigerian customs officials has become a stronger relationship. They're more willing to talk and work with you. Mark, can you tell us a little bit about, and I think it's awesome that you're going to schools. I know that's something you've done for a long time, working with schools and sharing your passion for wildlife with younger folks. Can you tell us a little bit about what happens with Hope and the other two pangolins? Tell us a little bit about the once they're ready, they're healthy and ready for release. Tell us a little bit about that process.
Okay. Before now, when I rehabilitate the animal and it's ready for release, I take to 2 protected forests near us here, about 10 kilometers away from me. These are protected forests with fence and with rangers that protect the place where I go to make my release. But the sad thing is, once we make this release in this forest, we do not have any tabs on the pangolins released. We're not able to monitor them or track them to see how they're doing. So I am currently working on building like a rehabilitation center, which is going to be about 9,000 square feet wide inside the protected forest in their natural habitat with several territoriums there. Step of their.
Oh, I think we lost our connection with you, Mark. So as we're trying to, oh, you're back.
Okay. It's like a controlled environment where we're able to monitor these animals. We're able to monitor how well they're doing. We're able to collect data on how well they are surviving and all that. So Juba, the senior pangolin, will be released tomorrow, yes, into the protected reserve. And hopefully in the next 2-3 weeks, with adequate funds, I should be able to complete the rehabilitation center. And then that is where we're going to release Ireti. Hope. Hope is going to be, hopefully, our first release there. And yes, so that will be like a controlled environment where we can monitor them, collect data on them before we start thinking of taking them out into the forest with adequate protection. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome, Mark. I'll relay just a little bit of what you're saying for those that are having a hard time hearing. Mark is in collaboration with a park in the area. We're actually not going to give names of the parks just to help protect some of these animals after release. But there's a 9,000 square foot rehabilitation center that's currently being built that is going to be kind of a transitionary zone. So once they're ready for release, we put them in the rehab center to be monitored, make sure that they're doing well, and then they'll be fully released into a protected area with a VHF transmitter. And so they can be monitored and to make sure that, that they're doing well in their new home, which is awesome. I'm so happy you're able to do the tagging, because I know when we were there last year, we did not have that capacity yet. So that's wonderful. Great questions, everybody. One of the questions was, how did you first start learning about how to rehabilitate pangolins? Maybe you can give a shout out to some of the folks that have helped you learn some of your rehabilitation techniques, especially for the babies, which I know is very, very difficult.
Yes, it's been no local knowledge of pangolins here in Nigeria. And on the internet, information is very poor. But I've had some wonderful people help me with information. First of all, I want to acknowledge and thank Lisa Hyman of the Tiki Wood Pangolin Foundation, Zimbabwe and Cameroon. She has been so wonderful to me. I can reach her at any time of the day, and she's ready to answer me and guide me. And then also, I've had inputs from Professor Ray and Nikki of the African Pangolin Working Group. I've had guidance from Peter Knight of Wild Aid, Bruce Young. These are people that have worked with pangolin, and they are always willing to tell me or to link me up with people who know about. And even yourself, Katie, thank you very much. Aside the film, you have linked me up with several people that I have been able to ask questions on pangolin, and they have been very willing to teach me. So these are where I gathered knowledge, and I'm writing them down, and I hope I'll be able to pass this knowledge to enthusiastic Nigerians that are willing to carry on the work so that we have more people doing this work.
That's amazing. Yeah, we have such a wonderful network in Africa of people that are doing incredible things, and I love that we can all connect to each other and help each other out. I just to repeat a couple of the names, I think I'm missing some of them. I heard Lisa Highwood, Peter Knight of Wild Aid, Bruce Young, and a big special thanks to everybody. And for those who are watching, I said earlier that there is a way for you guys to directly support the work, the incredible conservation work that Mark is doing there. And the way you can do that is you can go to savepangolins.org. And there's a section there that you can dedicate a donation on behalf of, and just put St. Mark in your donation, and that money will go directly to Mark Ofua and his rehabilitation center that is currently being built. So we really appreciate you all considering donating to that. Again, it's savepangolins.org, and make sure you include St. Mark in your donation note. Let me see if there's any other questions here. Oh yeah, Ray and Nikki from African Pangolin Working Group. That was the name I forgot. Thank you, Paul. I can hear your other animals, Mark, in the background.
I have dogs and cats, snakes, civets, mongoose, birds, owls, kites, different animals. I take in every animal. I can't turn my back on any animal. I can't say no to any animal.
I know you can. I know you can't. You have such a soft spot. How is little Hope doing? Is it a he or a she? I think our connection might be suffering a little bit here. Okay, we lost Mark for a second, but I think here. Shrink the other videos. All right, we'll see if we can get Mark back on here shortly. See if I can answer any of these questions here. You know, I see Julia's question about releasing the animals together. I saw them release certain animals together and they just kind of dispersed. Oh, hey, James.
Hi. I figured I wanted to ask you some questions as well.
Absolutely. Go for it.
And big thanks to Mark for not only joining last minute, but joining so late and sharing 3 amazing pangolins with us. It's incredible. I think only the sort of people here that work with pangolins know how rare it is to sort of see a live pangolin. But for folks like me that don't work with pangolins, rest assured it's very rare, it's very special. So you're getting quite a treat. Well, Katie, I wanted to make sure we get a chance to talk about your background a little bit, and how you got started with wildlife filmmaking, how you fell in love with pangolins, what your future plans are, and I just want to make sure we get to talk about your work a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally forgot the official prompt of this event is, when did you fall in love with a pangolin? And my story for when I fell in love with a pangolin spans about a 5-year period, because from the moment I found out about pangolins and began working with them to when I actually saw my first pangolin in the wild was 5 years. And so it's kind of a long story, but kind of sad too, because it took that long, even though I was directly working with various conservation and anti-poaching efforts. I made an entire film that was 13 minutes long that took over 1.5 years to make, and I didn't see a single live pangolin until the very end of that process, and that was an in captivity pangolin at the Bali Zoo, and that was the only way that we actually were able to finish the journey from beginning to end. And then beyond that, I started working with some of the folks in the U.S. That have an ambassador program. And so I saw, again, some in captivity pangolins there. Then I, did this project with Mark in Nigeria. Again, these are pangolins that have been poached from the wild. And then finally, the talk that you saw last night, Matt Shirley, and the incredible work that they're doing in Cote d'Ivoire, is when I saw my first wild pangolin in, I think it was March of last year. And that was just an incredible experience. Unfortunately, I couldn't really enjoy it properly because I was kind of up to here in swamp forest being bitten by ants over here. And there was these flying, these like biting flies. And then there was thorns covering me, and I was trying to film everything at the same time. So it was kind of a funny moment where, I'm getting to see this amazing animal just doing its normal thing in the wild, eating ants. Hey, we got Mark back. No, that's okay. That's okay. Well, we have about 10 minutes left, so we're just kind of answering some final questions. And James, what else?
I have another question for you that I think I always enjoy asking wildlife filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more about, what your thoughts are of the role of filmmaking in conservation. And thinking at two ends of the spectrum, if you take, beautiful film like Planet Earth, but sort of glosses over the real hardships, right? And kind of can overly beautify things. And then take the other extreme of something that's very popular this year in Tiger King, which completely ignores what's going on in the background for the sake of just reality, entertainment. But in both cases, they're not fully showcasing what's going on and what the conservation work is and needs are. So I'm just curious, like, what do you think the role of filmmaking is, what it should be, and how do you marry that with the reality that as a filmmaker, you're also trying to get views. You want your thing to be popular. Planet Earth and Tiger King are popular for two different reasons, but they both go to the extreme ends. What they do respectively to be popular, and then the conservation message really gets missed altogether.
Yeah.
In both cases. So how do you marry that as a filmmaker, knowing that you want to reach as many people as possible, but you also you don't want to stray too far from the important messages, as both of those programs kind of did in a way.
Mm-hmm. That's an excellent question, James. And I think that Tiger King was definitely a missed opportunity for conservation. it did open the door and kind of spur a lot of positive conversation about a lot of these issues. And so I guess it's good for that reason. But again, I think there was a major false equivalency with Tiger King. I think there are rehabilitation centers and rescue centers that have, approval by the right agencies and are absolutely worth our support and need to be there for, as a home for some of these animals to just kind of live out their lives with as much, low stress, no handling by people. They need a certain amount of area to be comfortable. And these are the types of facilities, the ones that are not breeding, that are not allowing any petting. Those are the kinds of facilities that we want to support. And they didn't really do a good job of making that distinction. And yeah, I think when, as a filmmaker, these are the kinds of questions we're talking about right now in developing stories. I think it's really important that we find amazing human characters that we connect with, like Mark, who, we have here, somebody who is extremely passionate about the work that they do. And I think it's also important to, kind of balance their personal struggle and their story with a very intimate kind of glimpse into the life of that animal. And I think there is a way to do both. And I try to do that a lot with camera angles and music, and kind of build that cinematic experience that we attribute to people and kind of apply it to the animal world. One of my first films about pangolins is actually only seen from the perspective of the pangolin, just to try to help people kind of put themselves in that perspective. So that's an excellent question and a hard balance to strike.
There's another question that was asked earlier by someone in the group that this is a good question for Mark since he's back. Mm-hmm. Mark, what do you say to local people in Nigeria, other areas of West Africa that are relying on pangolin trade to some degree for survival? We're an area where there's not a lot of job alternatives, right? There's not a lot of easy ways to just, go do something else and make money. I think we take for granted the privilege we have in the United States that there are a lot of things we could go do for a living. And there are more alternatives, but in other parts of the world, it's not that simple. But we also know that we have to conserve these animals. What do you say to those folks? What's that message? And what's it been like being an advocate for an animal that hasn't had a lot of sort of protection culturally, historically in Africa? Oh, I think you're on mute, Mark. I think you're on mute. Just tap there you go.
There you go.
Yes, interesting question, really. It's an education that I will have to do over and over and over again. Initially, when I started talking to them about conservation, they thought I was crazy, plain bat crazy. Okay? But over the years, over time, they now are beginning to understand it. For the need for conservation, it's difficult to get them to grasp it, but they are beginning to. And then my focus more is on the kids that are growing up, because these adults are set in their ways. It's going to be difficult to get them to let go. This is the means of their livelihood. They know. So when I work with the children, I go to primary schools, I go to secondary schools, I teach the children the need for conservation. And I use COVID as a very good example, teaching them that, look, these are the kind of calamities that befall us if we do not respect nature. Listen. So it's a battle that will have to go on continuously. I try to call on the government and then work with other NGOs to see if we can bring a different source of livelihood for these farmers, for these hunters and traders, like farming livestock, something that will get their mind off poaching pangolins and other wildlife, you see. But this is going to be more of a long-term approach. But the education thing, I talk every time, and they are beginning to grasp the concept of extinction and see that, yes, we should do something about it. That's why they called me in the first place, when they have animals that are alive that can be rehabilitated. So, yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen, Mark, any reaction negatively on the other side? In some parts of Asia, people are reacting to COVID by saying, "Oh, well, maybe we should get rid of pangolins." And there's always that fear with the COVID double-edged sword. Are you seeing any of that, or are you seeing people sort of buckle down and say, "No, we have to protect them and keep them in the wild to prevent this"? Or do you see anybody saying, "Oh, well, we can just get rid of them to protect this," which is obviously not what we want and not the right message? But have you heard that at all?
Well, from the government, nothing. From the people, they couldn't care less. But there is also some amount of negative feedback which might affect my work. Now, these parks where I make my releases, because of the link between the COVID and pangolins, they are not as enthusiastic. They do not tell me no, but they are not as enthusiastic as before to accept them. You understand? They are not as enthusiastic because they are not sure the direction the research is going to. Which is why this rehab center that I'm working on becomes more important, because we'll be able to tell them that they are in a controlled environment. It's not as if they are going to be let loose to walk around. They're in a controlled environment. But so far from the government, nothing. From pangolin groups, nothing. Fantastic.
Got it. Katie, before we wrap up, there's a couple folks that wanted to know what your next filmmaking project is. So I wanted to give you a chance if you want to plug what you're doing next.
Absolutely. I am currently finishing up the film that features Matt Shirley and the incredible work that they are doing with the black-bellied pangolin. So some of the footage that you guys might have seen yesterday, I also put a link in the comments that you can watch some of the very first Pango Cam footage. Those are all going to be featured in this film. And so we are currently in post-production for that. And there's also a feature film that we're working on. So there's lots of exciting things coming up in the next year or so. And again, I also posted a link if for all of you that want to support Mark and the incredible work that he's doing. And so you can donate through the Save Pangolins website. And again, everyone, thank you so much. This has been incredible. It's so incredible to see the little hope and the baby pangolins. And James, has just been an incredible event. And I'm just so honored to be a part of it. So thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you, Mark. Oh, another bonus pangolin shot. Oh, incredible. And Dr. Mark, thank you so much for joining us again. Thank you so much for the work you do. I think, people need to understand how much strength and courage it takes to do what you do, where you're at, and to be sort of a vehicle of change for your own culture and community. So, I think it's easy for me to be here and give you accolades, but the work you're doing is the real hard work. So thank you so much. And thank you, Katie, for showcasing all of this great work.
Of course.
Thanks everybody for tuning in. Please stay safe out there and support all marginalized communities and people and animals. That's what we want to stand behind. Right now. We have one more session tomorrow. It's our last session of the conference. It's at 4:00 Pacific, 1:00 Eastern. It is billed as a kid session, but it's actually going to be fun, really, for everybody. You're going to get to meet the youngest pangolin ambassador that we have found. His name is Ryan Hill. He's absolutely adorable. You're going to fall in love with Ryan. I promise you within 3 minutes of the session. He's like very well spoken. He's done his research. He's raised money already. He has his own pangolin costume, and he's even writing his own pangolin children's book, which he's going to give us a sneak preview on.
Wow.
After we read Pangy the Pangolin, another great book that Paul and Ryan are going to read together. So it's going to be an adorable session, and it's going to end us on a great note of the youth and seeing that like kids have a huge voice in this, and getting a little inspired by Ryan's generation. That there's a lot of hope out there. So with that, we'll let everybody go. Enjoy your Sunday evening. Get some sleep, Mark.
Yeah.
And we'll hopefully see everybody tomorrow for the last session. It's been a great week. We'll end on a great note tomorrow, and thanks for attending.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks.